Howdy wonderful people, it's Wild here. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to create this Wild Western saloon. This saloon is a celebration of spruce and uses supplies that are all pretty easy to get in survival. So not only would this make a fantastic creation in your creative world, but it would also make for a fun alternative to a survival base. Complete with a hay store and a stables, I'll also show you how to decorate around this build to really achieve that Wild Western look. And don't forget that if you'd like a world download for this build, you can check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. The materials you'll need for this build are on your screen now. Keep in mind that if you can't get any of these supplies, you can leave a comment and I'd be happy to offer some substitutions. Here is an outline for today's build. You can see that we've got two outlines marked in. The lighter color one shows the shape of the main build itself. Then in the darker color, we've got the outline for the veranda wrapping around two sides, and then we've got our horse stables off to the left, and then at the back we're going to be having our staircase and a hay shed. Now the doorway for this build is on the right bottom corner by my hand, and it's on that diagonal section of the wall. So this build is best viewed from an angle, so you want to keep that in mind when choosing a location for it. We're going to start by creating some posts around the corners of our main section of the build. So one here, one across this way, and this should be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 block gap in between these two posts. Then a 2 block gap in between these. Coming over this way, we should have a 7 block gap. Coming back around over to this left-hand side, we're going to have a 9 block gap between these two. And then we're going to count along our outline to where we have this diagonal, and we'll place a post on either side. So let's see, we should have a gap which is 7 blocks on this right-hand side. And then looking towards the sort of front of the build here, we've got an 11 block gap. Now that we've got all of our post locations marked in, I'm going to be adding an additional 8 blocks, so each post is 9 blocks tall. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Once you've counted one of the posts, it's easy enough just to build up to that same height. Here we are. And last one. Next, I'm going to take some strip spruce logs and we're going to place one on either side of the doorway down here on the diagonal section. And then I'm going to go 2 layers high all the way around this outline. And I want to make sure I'm placing all of these logs horizontally. The 2 at the front are vertical, so they're upright, but the rest we want horizontal. There we are, we have an outline marked in with our base block. Now I'm going to take some spruce planks, and on these 4 walls across the back, we're going to be building up 6 high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's finishing 1 block below the top. And I'm just filling in the whole wall here. We don't have any windows or anything on this side. Just filling in the last few blocks now. And there we go. Next we need to work on these front walls. So I'm going to start on this shorter front wall, and we have 2 windows on here, which I'll start by marking in with a temporary block. They're 3 blocks high and 1 block in from each side, and there should be a 3 block gap in between them. Next I'll come around to the longest wall here, and once again I'll count 1 block in and add in a 3 high window, 1 block in and add in a 3 high window, and then I'm going to count 3 blocks across and add in 1 more, and there should be a 3 block gap on either side of this central window. Now that those windows are marked in, we can fill in the rest of these walls up to the same height as before. I'm going to leave that diagonal section free because we're going to need to place our doorway in there. Once I've got these walls filled in, I'm also going to go ahead and replace the temporary blocks with some light grey stained glass. The reason I'm using this is it kind of has a dusty look, which I think works well for an old Western building. Over to the other wall. Now for this diagonal wall, I'm going to build up 6 high on either side of the door. Then I'm going to use some temporary blocks on the diagonal like this to count up 3 high. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this is counting from the height of these planks, so as if they were sitting on top of these strip spruce logs. This should leave you with 3 more at the top where I'll add in some planks. And I can remove those temporary blocks. The next step is to fill in the floor inside this layer. So I'm going to start by marking in a little W shape like this in the doorway. So this will sit on top of the diagonal outline as well as 1 block back. Then I'm taking some stripped dark oak logs and we're going to create a chevron sort of pattern. So we're going to place 2 like this, then 2 in the other direction, 2, then 2, and repeat this until we reach the other side of the build. There we go. Then I'm going to come back and I want to layer the next layer so it sits kind of off to one side like this, and then I'll continue that pattern. And I'm just going to repeat this step over and over until the whole floor is filled in. Again, so for this one, we're just adding in 1 block and you can see it's kind of going in a diagonal stripe and we're ready to go in the other direction. Next layer. So we've got 2, 2, 2 and 2. Then this way, and then for this one we just need to fill in 1 here. So we've got 2, 2, 2 and 2 here, and we're ready to go this direction. Go. So there's 1 section of the floor filled in, and I need to repeat these steps to fill in the last part of the floor here. There we go, so I've filled in the whole floor now. Now this can be a little bit confusing, but you should find that you have some arrows pointing all in the same direction when you look from one angle. And these arrows might be pointing in a different direction depending on what corner of the build you started your pattern in. If you are having trouble creating a pattern like this, another great option is just to place in your stripped dark oak logs running all in the same direction like this, and it creates the look of large floorboards, which works well for a Western style build. But now that we've got this filled in, we can start working outside the build again. Working on this short side of the wall first, I'm going to start at the very end and build out 2 blocks with my stripped dark oak logs. And I'll continue doing this, and this should be building right up to the edge of the outline until I reach this wall. Then I'm going to be building out 3 blocks from here. Then we'll build out another 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll build out 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll rotate round and come from the other side. So, once again, we'll have 2 going all the way across like this until we reach the end where we are going to have 3 blocks, followed by another 3, 1, 2, 3, another 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to have 2 blocks and 1 block. So we should be left with a few blocks free of the outline around that corner. Next, I'm going to switch over to some brown carpet. I'm going to remove the temporary blocks I left in this W section, and I'm going to be digging down an additional 4 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we should have a hole that's 5 blocks deep minimum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If your hole is deeper than this, that's okay. The reason we're doing this is so that mobs think there's a hole here and they won't try and walk through your doorway. So even though we won't be putting actual doors on the front of our saloon, we will not have a mob problem. I'm then just stacking up carpet within here, and this tricks all of those pesky zombies. There we go. Now let's add in some windows. So all of these window decorations are going to be the same. We're going to start with a note block with 2 stairs on either side. You'll need to hold shift to place these, otherwise you'll end up just playing the note block. I'm going to add stairs on top of this, followed by a trapdoor on either side. Then we've got some upside down stairs and an upside down stair in the middle, and then 2 more stairs on either side. Then I'm going to add in a few fences going up to the top. Let's repeat this design on all of the other windows. All of the windows are decorated. Now let's decorate the doorway. We're going to create an arch over this first. So in the center, I'll place in 2 spruce slabs so that they're on the top and then bottom layer of these 2 blocks. There should be a slab gap underneath. I'm going to have stairs on either side of here, making sure they're upright and facing out, and then 2 stairs underneath facing in and upside down. We can see the arch shape created. For the saloon doors, I'm going to place a temporary block on either side to add in a jungle trapdoor this way and that way, and again on this side, and then I can remove that temporary block. Next, let's move on to decorating this veranda edge. I'm grabbing some spruce logs and we're going to start at one end and build up 2 high. Then we'll count across 3 blocks, 2 high, 3 blocks, and 2 high. Now for this section, we're going to count 2, come back 1, and then count an additional block, and we'll build up here. So we have 3 blocks when you count across this way, or 4 blocks if you follow along the edge. Let's come in from the other side and do the same thing. So 2, then 3, 2, then 3, 2, then 3, and then we're going to go 2, back, and again. And you should be 2 blocks diagonal away from each other for these 2 kind of corner posts. Next, on top of all of these, we're going to place in a mud brick wall, followed by 2 jungle fences, and a packed mud block, like that. And we'll add 1 more spruce log on top of here. If you're enjoying today's video and would like to access some additional benefits like world downloads for this and all my other builds, as well as access to a multi-world server, check out my Patreon. I would love to play Minecraft alongside you and I'd really appreciate your support. Next, we need to add in some details. We're going to start by adding some upside down dark oak stairs in all of these 3 wide gaps. Now on these corners, we're going to just come around like this with our edging and kind of connect them up with that corner stair. You can see that I've left the diagonal at the front free because we'll be adding in our walkway up in just a bit. Then we're going to go in with some dark oak fences next on either side of these gaps. And on these diagonal ones, we'll just add in all fences. And in the gaps, we're going to be adding in some fence gates. At the bases and on the top of these posts, we'll add in a dark oak trapdoor. On this one here, we're just going to place one on this outer facing side. And we're going to surround all the sides of the packed mud block with a blank dark oak sign. To save on signs in survival, you could leave off this one on the interior as it's not really seen too much. Although in creative, those extra details do really add to the build. The only ones you do want to add the back signs to in survival would be these diagonal ones here, as well as these ones that are slightly further away from the build as the build curves around. Oops. And last one. There we go. Next up, we're going to make some archways between the tops of these posts. So we're going to have stairs on either side of each one, making sure they face in towards each other. Now on this diagonal one, we'll come back there later and we'll just continue on to the other side. There we are. Next, we need to add in a dark oak trapdoor in between. Now for these ones on the corner, we're going to be placing it onto the stair that's on the longer side, not on the corner. There we are. Now back over to this corner space, we're going to add in the 2 extra trapdoors here and here now. And then by holding crouch, I'm going to place onto the top corner of that trapdoor to place in a stair on either side to create a smaller archway. For the stair underneath here, we're going to place in a dark oak plank and then 2 stairs on either side of that. Then we've got some slabs coming forward to create a nice smooth step. And finally, we'll add in a couple more dark oak trapdoors on either side. Next, I'm going to take some grass blocks or whatever your ground blocks is. So if you're in the mesa, it might be some terracotta, and just replace the outline that's visible. Let's take a step back and have a look at our build so far. Next up, I'm going to come up to the top of the build and I'm going to use some sort of temporary block just going around the outline like this. This is going to make it easier to place in our layer of the horizontal spruce logs because we'll have something to place them on. Around this side and almost there. There we go. We're going to start on this first longer side and we're just going to alternate between placing them horizontally and vertically. And I'll do the same thing over on this shorter side with windows. Next, I'm going to come around to this side here and do the same thing. On these back 2 sides, we're going to be placing them vertically through here. And then when we come to this side, we're going to need to add in 2 vertical ones in the center because we have a 2-block center on this wall. Over around to this side and continuing on with our pattern. And finally, for this diagonal section, we're going to have 2 facing out and then 2 facing in. Now I can remove all of these temporary blocks and we're going to start working on the roof for the veranda. So we want to create quite a textured appearance here, so we will be working slowly to create that design. I'm going to start by placing a spruce plank on top of this block here, and then I'll place one on every other block going along this edge, stopping on top of this trapdoor, and I'll do the same thing on the shorter side as well. Stopping again on top of the trapdoor, and I'll add slabs in every other space. Coming forward from here, in front of the blocks, I'll add in a slab, and then in front of the slabs, I'll add in a trapdoor. And again around on this side. And next I'll take some spruce planks and we're going to place a row of those going all the way across the back. And we need to add on a slab on top of each of the blocks behind the taller block in this pattern. Finally, for this section, we're going to take some spruce planks and some slabs and we'll alternate between them. And we're just going to go to the edge of the wall with this design. So you can see that we have this open section over the diagonal part of the build, and then we've got our roof coming together. Next up, we're going to take some more spruce planks and I'm going to build out 4 from this post on either side. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. These should meet diagonally like this, and I'll fill in this gap with some more planks. I can then go back and add in the plank and slab to finish off that section of the roof. And now all we need to fill in is that very corner. So to fill this in, we're going to start with some spruce planks again, just placing them on top of our outline. Then I'm going to place in a spruce slab on either side above those trapdoors and a spruce trapdoor in the center. Then over on the 2 wide sections, we'll have a trapdoor and a slab, and same thing on this side, like that. Then we're going to place 2 trapdoors on top of these blocks, and then just fill in the gap with some spruce slabs. Here's how the roof of the whole veranda should look. Now before we get working on the next story, we need to add in some light. So inside I'm just going to place in some temporary lighting with these torches on the ground. And then outside, underneath this veranda, we need to add some light as well. So I'm going to hang a couple of lanterns, one here and here, and then I'm going to place one behind each of the logs on the posts. And there we go. All right, on to the next story. We're going to need a way to access this story. So starting inside the build on this 9 wide wall where we have our window here, I'm going to count 3 blocks in and add in a dark oak stair. And I'm going to zigzag my way up until I'm just near the edge. All right, 1 more block along and a stair here. And now I need to turn back around and come up this way. So I'm going to add in 1 more upside down stair, add in a slab this way and a slab coming forward, and then I'll continue zigzagging up. And I'm going to stop where I have an upside down stair level with all of these spruce logs. Next, we're going to add in some spruce beams. I'm going to start by placing one coming across here. So that's out of this post on the corner here. Then I'm going to count 2 blocks across, 1, 2, and add in another one going all the way across, 2 again, and this is going to sit right beside the stair. I'm going to add in some more going in the opposite direction, again 2 blocks. I'll count 2 blocks, and this is going to be in the way of this stair, but that's okay. And on the 3rd block, we're going to add in another post. So we've got 2, 3, 2. And then we've got that gap over the stairway open. Now for the beams in this other section, I'm going to count 2 across and add in 1 here, and this should connect up to the corner. Then I'll count 2 across again and add in another. Then I'm going to count 3 blocks across, 1, 2, 3, and on that 4th block, I'll add in 1 more, and this should line up with the post on this section, here and here. Then coming from the other direction, I'm going to count in 2 blocks from either side, and this will leave us with a 1 block gap in the center. There we go. Next, I'm going to fill in all of these gaps with some dark oak slabs placed at the top level. I'm just filling in the last section, which is around this stair, and you can see I'm adding in only 3 slabs, and the rest of the floor is filled in. I'm going to add in some railing on the stairs using some oak trapdoors. I'm just placing these directly onto the stairs going up the sides. And make sure we add railing to this section as well. So I'm going to use a temporary block to place in this last trapdoor just on the edge like that. And coming up, we need to add some railing up here. To add this in, you can see I've added some temporary blocks just on the edges, so that way I can place the trapdoors onto those. And once they're removed, you can see instead of sitting over the top of these blocks, they're sitting over the edge. Now I need to add in some posts on this layer. I'm going to start by placing some on this front corner section of the build, behind where we have these 2 upright facing logs, and they're going to be 7 high. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and again over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. Next, I'm going to be placing one over on this side, and you can see that it's 1 block in. And over on this side, once again, 1 block in from where we have the other post. And then just adding 1 on each corner. Now before we fill in these walls, we need to mark in our windows. Let's start on this front wall where we have these 3 windows below. And we're going to have 3 windows above, making sure that they're in line with these posts. They're both 3 high and 3 blocks apart. And the last one. And there we go. So we've got a 1 block gap between the window and the post on both sides, and then 3 between each window. Let's go ahead and come round to this other front facing side, and we're going to count 1 in from either side and add in a 3 high window. There we are. Coming around to the back of the build now, on this shorter wall we're going to have a 2 wide window in the center, and it's going to be 3 high as well. You'll see that there is a 2-block gap on either side. Then on this longer wall, right beside where we've got the railing, we're going to mark in a location for our door. So that should be 2 blocks away from this outermost post. And then finally on this wall here where we've got an area marked in for the stables, we're going to have another 2 wide window on the center of this wall. And that's again 3 blocks high. So we're 3 blocks in from this post and 3 blocks in from that post. Next, I've come around to this front section of the build where we've got the diagonal piece of wall. We should have 3 blocks across this way, directly diagonal between these 2 posts. And I'm going to find this middle block and mark in a 2 high gap for my wall. This is going to be where we have our door, and I'm going to fill in the rest of this wall on the diagonal, leaving 1 block free at the top. And you can see I'm using spruce planks. Now I'm going to go ahead and around the base of the rest of the walls, I'm going to build up 2 high with stripped spruce logs. I'm just filling in the last section of this wall now with the stripped spruce logs, making sure that we've lined up everything with our posts and we've got a pretty good base now. Next, I'm going to switch back to the spruce planks and we're filling in all the walls up to the height of 1 below the posts. So we'll be adding on 4 blocks on top of these stripped spruce logs. Now that all of those walls are filled in, I'm going to replace all of the window blocks with some light grey stained glass panes, and then I'll also be placing in my doors. And then 2 more windows to go. And onto the doors. So for this back door, I want to place it so it's sitting on top of these logs like this. It should be flush with the wall and open inwards. Then coming around to the front, we're going to remove these 2 temporary blocks. And for these doors, we want to face them so they open outwards. So I'm standing inside the build and placing them onto these outer logs, and I want to make sure the handles are facing towards each other. So they'll open up like that. And we can walk out on what will be our balcony. To fill in the section above these walls, we're going to be using some spruce logs. So on the back section of the wall, we're just placing them in between the posts like this. And then we're going to have a more decorative design on the front facing walls. So what we're going to do to place these in is create a border out of a temporary block, just sitting 1 block behind the wall. Then along these 2 flat sides, we're going to alternate between an outwards facing log and an upright one. Then on the diagonal wall in the center, we'll have our log facing upwards, and then we'll have our logs facing outwards on the other 2 blocks. And we can go ahead and remove all of these temporary blocks now. Next, let's add in some window decorations. So for the 1 wide windows, we're going to have slabs going across the base like this. And then we're going to create a little archway over the top. So I'm placing a slab here and a slab above that. Then we've got a stair on either side. There we are. Next, I'm going to take some spruce trapdoors, and we're creating shutters with these. So I want some of them to be closed like this and some of them to be open. Like that. And on to the next window. I like to do all of the dark oak decorations first on a side, and then I can go ahead and add in my shutters. That way I can get a mixture between fully open, fully closed, and half open. I think I might have this side open like this side closed, and then these 2 closed as well. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing around on that side, but before I do that, I'm going to do this 2 wide window, and I'll do the same decoration on the 2 wide window on that wall as well. So we'll have 4 slabs across the base this time, and then to create our archway, I'm placing in 2 upside down stairs here. Like There we go. Then I'm going to add in stairs to create a point shape. And just like on our other windows, we're adding in shutters. I think I might have these both fully closed like that. Round to this next window, and we'll do the same thing. So 2 upside down stairs. To place that upside down stair in, you need to look in the top kind of back corner of the stair. And then let's see, I think I might have this one partially open. There we are. And onto these one wide windows again. With all our windows decorated, we need to decorate our doors next, starting with this one on the diagonal. I'm going to begin by placing some jungle trapdoors above the doorway, flipping them with the handles downwards like this. Then we're going to create an archway with upside down stairs, then a right way upstairs, and then we've got a few more right way up ones on the outside. And let's add in a couple dark oak fences to round off the shape. Next, we need to add in some railing to this balcony. I'm going to start by grabbing some jungle fences and I'm placing them in these 3 blocks here on the corner. Then I'm going to add a packed mud block to either side of that. And then we need to finish off this railing by placing in 3 more to either side. Let's add a dark oak slab on top of each mud and then a dark oak sign just left blank in front of each of these blocks. Next up, we need to add some decorations to the doorway at the back, and that includes adding in a staircase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the base of the build here, and I'm going to count 2 blocks across, so that should line me up with the doorway above. So I've got 2 blocks beside me before I've got the post. I want to make sure I'm sitting 1 block out from the build, and this is where I'm going to add in my first dark oak stair. Then I'm going to zigzag my way up using these dark oak stairs until I hit this wall. And there we go, we've hit the wall. Then I'm going to place in 2 dark oak slabs across this way. And on top of this second one, we're going to zigzag up again with the dark oak stairs until we reach the doorway. If you've counted your blocks right, you should end up with an upside down stair directly underneath the door, like that. Next, we need to add in some railing. So we're using oak trapdoors, and I'm just going to place 2 on each stair like this. So that way, when I flip them up, we've got a row of upside down stairs underneath, and then a stack of the oak trapdoors. Then I need to add in 1 more at the top here, and I'm going to use a temporary block for that to finish off that section of the railing. I'm then going to continue this for the second layer of stairs. And flip those up. There we are. We need to add in a few more here, so we'll add in a temporary block and a couple more trapdoors. And then we need to add the railing on the inside edge. Once again, just placing it 2 high on each stair. And flip those. Looking good, and you can check that this staircase is usable by walking up all the way up to the door. And this one works just fine and you're not going to fall off. Now we need to add in some decoration to the door itself. I'm adding in spruce trapdoors on either side, and then I'm going to create a little archway like over the top of each of the windows. Let's add in some more decorations. I'm going to take some dark oak trapdoors, and I want to place these on these kind of joining sections in the posts between the bottom and top story. Just like that. I'm also going to be placing them on the joining sections between the posts and beams on these back walls at the top. And here as well. So you can see I haven't placed any trapdoors on the front sides. Next, coming back down to this story here, I'm going to be using some dark oak signs, which I'm just placing in blank like this, and we're going in a row along this way. Then I'll wrap around here. I'm going to leave these 2 free, but place in a couple signs along this way. And continuing on the other side of the stair, and I'm just going to finish underneath here. I need to leave this side free because the roof of the stables is going to come up to this same height. Let's work on the roof next. I'm going to come inside the build and place in a few torches so we don't have mobs spawning. And then I'm going to grab the spruce logs to create some beams. Let's start by creating a beam coming across from this joint here over to the wall at the front. And then we should be able to divide this into 3 groups of 2. So 2, beam 2, beam 2. And I'll create some beams going across this way. And we should be able to do this again in this same direction. So 2, beam 2, beam 2. And I'm going to connect those up. There we go. Next, we need to create some beams in this section. So for here, we're going to have 1 gap, then a beam, 2 gap, then a beam, and then 1 gap. And I'll build these the whole length as well. And then we need to connect across this way. So we're going to have a beam going in this direction. And then we'll just continue on these beams that we have already placed in. So from above, we've got a grid that looks like this, and we're going to fill in all the gaps with the dark oak slabs. With the roof filled in, we're going to add a decorative edge to the front sides. I'm going to start by placing in a temporary block so I can add in an upside down dark oak stair. And I can remove that, and I'm just going to add a row of these upside down stairs going all the way along the front like this. And then when we get to the diagonal section, I'm just going to go back and forth, creating a smooth edge. We shouldn't have any holes showing through here. And then finishing off on this side. There we go. Next up, we're going to take some dark oak fences, and I'm going to place one in front of each of these post logs. And then I'm going to count 3 blocks across and add in another. 3 blocks across, add in another. And these should be in the center of the window gaps. 3 blocks across, add in 1 more, and 3 blocks, and we're up to our next one. On this diagonal side, I'm just going to add in 2 more fences. Now in these 3 wide gaps, I'm going to add in some fence gates, which I'm opening up. And this adds a nice decorative edge underneath our roof line. Next, I'm going to take some dark oak slabs, and when I'm facing from these flat sides, I'm going to find the stair which is above the post and add in a slab on top. And I'll do this on this side as well. So find this stair, place one on top, and over here as well. Then coming onto the top of the roof, I'm going to place in a spruce planks with a spruce stair, one in from either side of this long wall where we've got those slabs, just like this. And we're going to be creating a shape for our saloon sign next. So I'm going to start by adding in a couple of dark oak stairs placed upside down onto these spruce stairs. Then I'm going to be placing in spruce planks going between these 2. Just like that. I'll come up 1 block and in 1 block from either side and add in another layer. And then I'll count in 2 blocks and add in 3, and that should leave me with 2 blocks free at the end. Now I need to add a dark oak edge going over the top. So I'm going to start by adding stairs in and over this way, and then a couple of slabs to finish it off. There we are. I'm also going to be placing 3 blank dark oak signs across the top, and then we'll be adding in some lettering onto the sign. Let's create the banners for this lettering. Starting off, I'm going to need a loom, of course, and we're going to add in our brown banner first. Then we're going to add in the stripe at the top and a stripe at the bottom. We're working on the letter S right now. Next, I'm going to go ahead and we're adding in a diagonal stripe like this. And then we want to switch over to brown dye, and we're going to add in a bumpy border like this, followed by a smooth border. And there's our S shape. The next letter we need is an A. We're going to start with our brown banner, and we're placing in a white edge on either side, one here and one here. Then we need to add in a stripe in the center and a stripe at the top. And to finish it off, we'll switch back to brown and add in a smooth border all the way around. And there is our A banner. To create the L, we're simply placing in our banner. And we're going to need a white die, and we're placing a stripe up the side. We're placing a stripe at the bottom, and then we'll switch over to the brown die and create a border all the way around. And there's our L. Onto the O, we're going to need 2 of these, so I'm just creating one like this, and then in survival you can duplicate it. Let's add in 2 stripes at the top and the bottom, and then on either side. And then we've got our border going all the way around in the brown. So don't forget you can duplicate in survival using a crafting table. There's our O. And next we're going to create our N. So for this, we're going to add a stripe of white up either side of our brown banner. And then a diagonal stripe going that way. And we need to add in some brown border all the way around. And there's our N. Now because Saloon, if we add in our extra O, has 6 letters and this sign is 7 blocks across, we're going to need something to fill in the space. For that, we're going to be creating a star shape. So for this, we're actually going to start with a white banner and we're going to add in a brown stripe in the center. Then we're going to switch over and add in a white flower charge. Then I'm going to switch back and we're going to be adding in a brown top and a brown bottom. Just like that. Next, we're going to have white and add in a diamond shape. And to turn it into a Wild Western Saloon star, we're adding a point at the bottom. And that'll give us a star that looks like this. So I'm going to take all of these banners now, and I can remove my loom, and we're going to add them onto our sign. So starting here with our S, A, L, 2 O's, an N, and our star at the end. Our build is really coming together now. I'm going to move around to the back of the build and we're going to add in a hay storage shed on this shorter wall. I'm going to start with a hay bale and coming 1 block down from where we've got these signs. So there's 1 block, and then on the block below that, I'm going to be placing in 5 hay bales facing outwards like this. So we should be 1 block away from the edge of this wall and 3 blocks away from the edge of that wall. Then I'm going to add in a row of temporary blocks, add in 5 more hay bales, and then another row of temporary blocks and 5 more hay bales. And I can remove all of those placeholders. Next, we're going to switch to some spruce, and I'm going to create an edge using stairs coming down like this, and then I'm going to place stairs underneath for a nice finished edge. I'm going to be having a row of slabs next, and I'm going to place those on the layer down like this. And let's grab some spruce signs, and I'm going to be placing blank signs like this across the front of each hay bale. So here's how it's looking. To finish this off, I'm adding in a couple more spruce slabs on either side. You can see that just continues the line here. Then on the edge in from that, I'm going to place in 2 jungle fences, and then at the base, a mud brick wall. There we go. Let's add some decorations underneath here. I'm going to start by placing in a few barrels, just in a kind of random looking stack like this. Might face this one over to this side. I'm going to leave a gap and add in a composter like that. And then on this side, I'm going to place in a hay bale and surround it with some spruce trapdoors. There we are. Now underneath this staircase, I'm going to add in a few more hay bales, once again placing them into a random sort of pile like this. And I'm going to have 1 more over on that side. Next up, let's move around and work on the stables. We're going to start with some stripped spruce logs, and I'm building 3 out from the wall across these points here. So we should be 1 block in from either post, and then we've got 3 block gaps between them. At the end, I'm going to build up 2 high with spruce logs, just like this. And we need to add in some gates along here. So we're going to place in a jungle fence on either side, and then we'll add in 2 jungle gates. Building up from each of these posts, I'm going to add in a mud brick wall, followed by a jungle fence, and a packed mud block. We're following along the style on the posts on the main part of the build. Then we need to create some archways. So for this, we're placing in some dark oak stairs on either side. And I'm going to do the same thing to connect these posts up to the wall. And then we'll add in a dark oak trapdoor in between. And to finish off these posts, let's add in some blank dark oak signs. Next up, we're going to add in our roof. So I'm going to start by placing in a few temporary blocks just like this behind where we've got our edge. And I'm going to place in some stripped spruce logs facing outwards, and then I can remove those blocks. There we are. Now we're ready to start working on this roof. So we're going to be placing a slab in front of this stripped spruce log, and then we're going to alternate between a slab here and then a block, then a slab and a block, and so on. And we are going to have blocks off to either side. Then in front of that, in front of the blocks, we're going to have a slab, and in front of the slabs, we're going to have a trapdoor. Next, we need to continue on this pattern for the rest of the roof. So I'm going to begin by coming behind here, and I'm placing in a block in each of these gaps here. Then I'm going to switch to spruce slabs, and I'm placing one onto the spruce plank behind and then one above. I'm going to do the same thing on either edge. There we are. Going on to our next layer, I'm placing a slab here and a slab here. And then we need to add in a block to this edge and a block to this edge. And in between, we're going to alternate between a block and a slab. And taking a step back, we should have this wavy pattern continuing. We're on to our very last layer here, and we're just going to be using slabs to finish this off. So where we need to go up a slab, I'll add in one here. And then where we need our block height, we're going to add in a slab coming up to the top. And then finally, to finish off this edge, I'm going to add in an extra slab underneath. Coming back down, let's add in some more details under here. I'm going to grab some oak trapdoors first, and I'm going to come to either edge, and I'm building up 3 high for 2 blocks and then 2 high for 1 block. Just like that with my oak trapdoors. Then I'm going to place in 2 more trapdoors just on that edge. And 2 more trapdoors here. Then in between, we're placing in a few jungle fences, just like that. I'm going to add a pile of hay in this stall. And on this side, I'm going to break these 2 grass blocks and add in spruce planks. Then I'm going to surround with some of my spruce trapdoors. And I might place this one on the inside. That way I can have a little water trough just like that. Next up, I'm going to hang a couple of lanterns, placing them onto these blocks here. And then I'm going to place a few cobwebs up in this roof space. Let's add a little bunch on this side as well. Coming back out, I'm going to grab some dark oak trapdoors, and I'm going to be placing these onto all of the spruce logs around the base. Around this side, let's place them over here. And don't forget these ones on this side as well. And while I'm over here, I'm going to add in a couple of cobwebs underneath this hay shed. Alright, our saloon is looking really good now, but let's add some finishing details to really bring it to life. So there we go, I've added all of the finishing touches, and it looks incredible. Let's check out what I've done. The first thing you'll notice is that I've placed the build within a mesa or badlands biome, although this saloon would look awesome here in an acacia biome, in a desert, or anywhere with that kind of a western feel. You could also customize this build by switching out the blocks to make it work in other biomes as well. And this same design could be used to create another type of shop by switching out the lettering here on the sign. I did a little bit of terraforming in my mesa biome by switching out some of the terracotta around the base of the build with some grass. I've also added in some coarse dirt to just create a smoother transition. And by placing in this muted green color, it separates the warm color hues of the build from the warm hues of the terracotta surrounding. You'll also notice that I've placed this build along a road, so I've created a gravelly looking road with a mixture of gravel and dead coral blocks. And that helps to once again ground the space, and because this is a saloon, you'd have it along a traveling road. I've placed in lots of decorations around this build, so let's check them out. First off, I've created a few different carts. We've got this white one here with a woolen canopy. Over this way, we've got a hay cart. And then behind the build, I've got another type of hay cart as well, delivering hay to the storage behind. Another thing you'll notice is that I've placed lighting on some of the hay carts and fences, and in fact I'm going to add one more lantern on top of this one here just to bring a bit of extra brightness. Let's see where else I've added lights. You can see that I've hung one from the hay storage here, and I've placed some on top of these hay bales. And then around here by the stables, I've placed some on some broken down pieces of fence. I like to have these sections of fence rather than a bit of fence going all the way around the build because it keeps it more open and adds to that rustic look. I've also placed in some fences to be able to tie up some of my horses. Hello, Melvin. And you can see that I've placed them in little groups around the build, and of course quite a few over by the stables. As for my greenery, I've kept it really simple. We've gone for an overgrown look, so we've got lots of grasses and of course some ferns and dead bushes. And then for a pop of colour, I've placed in these dandelions and some of these azure bluette flowers. Around the front of the build itself, I've placed in some slightly more organised garden beds, just grounding them with a little bit of this rooted dirt, and then we've got some greenery and then some flowers, and I've opted for these orange tulips to tie in the orange from the surrounding landscape. A couple other decorations you can see, we've got a kind of well system over here with a trough for the horses, and I've got a pile of wood around here at the back for the storage, and the whole thing has a really rustic look, so I've made sure to give it lots of overgrown greenery, lots of broken down pieces in the path tying in the landscape with the built elements, and lots of those warm neutral tones. For tutorials on how to create these decorations, as well as more decorations you can use to create an atmospheric world around your saloon, check out the tutorials in the description below. So now you've got a classic saloon for your world. If you enjoyed this Wild Western style build tutorial, I'd really appreciate it if you consider liking and subscribing, and check out my Patreon to support me further. I'll see you in another video.